let's queer up health. Utah's Governor Spencer Cox says U.S. health groups are politicized and unreliable for info on trans health care. On a Sunday appearance on Face the Nation, Governor of Utah Spencer Cox said the number of young people who identify as transgender and ask for hormone therapy or puberty blockers is exploding, and that American medical groups like the American Academy of Pediatrics have become politicized. Cox said he was looking for more data and information on the subject and said it has been impossible to get good information on what medical treatments are safe for young people because medicine in the United States has become too politicized. Host Margaret Brennan responded by listing several American medical groups, including the American Medical Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics, that have endorsed the use of medical interventions to slow or stop puberty in young people, and Cox said, quote, "They've rejected the claims that it is harmful," end quote. He pointed out that the number of young people who have gender transition surgery is relatively small, but Cox said the number of children who ask for hormone therapy is exploding. Cox further said, quote, "That's what these scientists in other countries are actually trying to figure out. Where in the United States, we are putting our head in the sand and saying, we're not even going to talk about this," end quote. Is it possible that Governor Cox, he confused the legitimate American Academy of Pediatrics, whose numbers number around 67,000, with the illegitimate and insane socially conservative American College of Pediatrics, whose membership numbers in the hundreds? Maybe he was confused. Maybe he was referring to the wrong group.
I mean, I want to agree with the governor because our medical, background is being politicized primarily by the Republican Party, who is anti-science, right, anti-vaccine, who in the 80s didn't want to fund, AIDS and HIV healthcare, is now trying to restrict women's healthcare and now restricting trans healthcare. So yes, our political views are shadowing what's happening in the medical world because of what's happening in the Republican Party.
I want to clarify that it's not every Republican, it's not the entire party, it is the fringes. There are people who are Republican who actually do stand for us and are on our side. There are also people who are Democrats who are not. So it's not that we have to stop blanketing all of this. We're only adding to division when we're saying those things. So let's preface that. There are some people in our country who don't believe in science, period. Let's keep it that way. I think that what's funny is the word they used was exploding when that the number is exploding here. But you see, what's interesting, when any other cure comes out, or a vaccine comes out, it's okay, give it to the masses because it's addressing an illness, it's addressing a disease or whatever it might be. But when it's coming to gender dysphoria, apparently if you address that explosion is something that's toxic because even though puberty blockers have shown to have no negative consequences, they are horrible for humankind and it's just to be horrible for our society. That is why it's just a double-edged sword. This is double standard that does not need to, that we need to correct there. But that's I will rephrase what I said. The Republican platform is all of these things. They've embraced this platform. So Republican voters may not have embraced all of these, but the Republican platform has, and again, the Republican leaders that are in Congress who wanted to investigate Dr. Fauci as another example, that is the leaders of the Republican Party. Republican voters, I take back my comment.
And our Republican governors.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
And when I think about the numbers exploding, I just think that the kids now, they thought and had the misconception that it was safe for them to come out and be who they were.
Exactly.
I remember back when I was a kid, oh my God, I would never have thought about transitioning or at least opening my mouth about transitioning. But now, at least a couple years ago, it seemed to be that it was a safe place and it was okay. And you had, I can't tell you how many youth that were coming to Pride Lines and Trans Inclusive Group and Trans Social, the parents trying to get information about transitioning.
This is why this issue is so insidious, because they know exactly what they're doing. The reason why people are expressing their authenticity is because they got to a point where they thought, I can be who I am in America, and there will not be terrible consequences for me to do that. The minority, which you're talking about, has weaponized this subject to win elections, whip up the base, raise money, and be a dominant, controlling alpha in the politics of politicizing America. And the reason they're doing it is a backlash to the more natural nature of what our society was. If trans, in terms of gender dysphoria, let's say it amounted to 1.5% of population or 2% of population, if we got much beyond 2%, it would be a real argument to say, you know, we got to do a lot more study to find out it's that number. What they are doing, what they do on Fox News, what Laura did and what Tucker did is to say it's exploding and everyone is doing it. That is a lie. It is a total lie. And why do they tell that lie over and over again? Because of power and control and money.
Creating fear.
And create fear. They want to push you back into the closet. You can exist as long as you don't raise your hand and speak. Now, once we realize that, then we analyze what they say that our medical professions in the United States are politicized. Really? The Republican Party, the radical GOP, the radical evangelicals versus 68,000 medical professionals that have said as a body, overwhelmingly, what the hell are you talking about? The psychiatry and the medical profession is politicized, or the evangelicals and the radical GOP? Come on, who are you kidding? You can't sell this. You couldn't sell it to a mule. It's just a flat out lie. And unfortunately, our trans kids are the fodder of your lie. It's an incredible shame.
I have been a believer that trans is transcendent. It's a form of evolution. But the things we're going to see coming down the pipeline in the next 20 years, you're going to see trans start to include technology. It's going to start including different prosthetics that are going to be put in there because you're transitioning your body. When is it okay to have a prosthetic foot, but you can't have different genitals than you were born with? They're going to start lumping it all together, and then we're going to see different things happening with the ADA. We have to pay attention to this stuff because there was a great TED Talk on it. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they're going to separate what we know as gender identity now versus what's human later.
You know, and interesting, just kind of a different subject, but I think it's interesting. I've seen a meme. I was told about it today, and I went and looked at it. And it is the picture of those that are so anti-abortion and the time that is defined of the conception of life. And they show a picture in this meme of the conception of life. This is a child, and therefore its life is protected, and no conversation about abortion should be allowed or legitimized as legality. And then simultaneously go, but the meme says, much more articulate than what I'm explaining, that we're all trans. Because at that moment of life, there is no genital development.
No gender.
There's no male or there's no female, but it's life. And at that point, they're willing to defend that until it's no longer their story that they want to defend for money and power and control, and therefore they stop to defend.
Are you saying there's hypocrisy?
I know.
Sounds like
it's hard to believe, isn't it?
They will start to do it by saying it's chromosomal, but there are so many different variations of chromosomes besides XX and XY. There's people born with one chromosome called Turner syndrome. There's XXY, which there's so many more.
This all sounds like science to me. Okay. All right. We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ+ evening news show, brought to you from Happening Out Television Network. We operate in the same model of PBS and NPR, but for the LGBTQ+ community. We educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community, with more than 100,000 a week watching us on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the story going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.